So we are up to way number 32. Ohev es habrios, loving humanity. So you're in a room full of people, and someone you don't know walks in. What's your initial thought? Do you immediately notice a flaw or a fault that you can criticize? Do you look at them suspiciously? Do you identify them as a threat? Right? Perhaps you don't pay attention to them at all. Or do you right away look for something to admire about the person? So our sages instruct us to love humanity. Right? Hillel said, be among the disciples of Aaron. Right? Having me talmidei shel Aaron. Right? That Oyev Shalom, V'roidev Shalom, V'oyev es habriyos. We're supposed to love peace, pursue peace, and love humanity. So how do we love humanity? So first, as with everything, define your terms. What does love mean? So according to our sages, the way we define love is that love is the pleasure of recognizing and appreciating a person's virtues and inner beauty and identifying them with those virtues, and as opposed to with their weaknesses or faults. It takes a lot of effort and training to look away from people's negative traits and focus instead on their positive traits. The more we understand and identify with their positive traits, the more we can love them. There was an article that I read years ago written by a psychologist, a family therapist, a couples therapist, who had been tracking couples from the time that they got married until the time that their marriage dissolved. And he recalled, one instance where this couple first came to him and they were newlyweds, and the wife had a tendency to giggle whenever she was nervous. And the husband looked over and turns to the doctor and says, "Isn't that the cutest thing, how she giggles when she's nervous?" Fast forward a couple of years later, and they're in the process of divorce, and she giggles in the middle of a meeting, and the husband just whips around. "I can't stand that giggle." Right? So what happened there? Right? One was, at the beginning, he was choosing to identify with her virtues and not only overlook the little flaw, but even find it endearing. Whereas later, when he was no longer identifying with her virtues and rather with her faults, all of a sudden that thing that he once considered endearing was now like nails on a chalkboard. So number one of loving humanity is start with those closest to you. Right? How do we start loving humanity? Don't believe the claims of anyone who says they love humanity if they're abusive to their family. Right? If a person can't see the virtues in those closest to them, they have no chance of seeing the virtues in a stranger. So loving humanity starts with looking at your closest circle, your wife, your parents, your siblings, your children, right? And then the next concentric circle, which is your friends and your neighbors and your community. The next concentric circle out is maybe, for someone who's Jewish, the Jewish people. And then finally, the widest concentric circle is obviously humanity. So to strengthen your ability to love, develop a list of virtues about the people that you already presently love. Why do I love them? What virtue do they exhibit, right? And that I appreciate. There's a really critical thing that you start to identify the things that drive you towards that love. Number two of this is to look for virtues. Once you have enumerated the virtues that you come to admire in people that you love, right? Look for virtues in your friends and those around you. I'm showing on the screen a list of virtues posited by Rabbi Zelig Pliskin in one of his books. And again, you can see in it and identify in it some really interesting potential virtues. So when you're sitting in your next meeting, waiting for the meeting to start, look around at your colleagues and ask yourself, what virtues do they exhibit that I can identify with? Also, become a connoisseur of virtues, right? Expand your vocabulary of virtues, which will help you to look for a greater range of positive traits in those around you. Number three of this is to love humanity. So when Yaakov Avinu, our father Jacob, arrives at the well where he's destined to meet Rachel, right? He bumps into a bunch of shepherds, strangers, and he says to them, "Achai me'ayin atem," my brothers, where are you from? Now they're strangers, perfect strangers. Why did he call them brothers? the Torah is teaching us a really important lesson, right? By calling them brothers, he was recognizing their shared humanity. They're not an object, they're not an impediment, they're not a nuisance. They have the potential to be my brother. So the first step in loving humanity is to recognize that the people around you are not just part of a herd, right? They're not nameless creatures. They don't mean nothing to you. We're a part of a brotherhood of mankind. That means that every individual has the potential to be my brother or my sister, and respect that humanity. So take this further, right, and learn to see the common virtues that virtually all human beings possess, right? We believe that people are created in the image of God. That's something that everybody, the divine spark in us that gives us our free will, we believe that everybody's endowed with that, right? We have this incredible creative power to accomplish and express genius in the world. And look what that has wrought the world in a positive sense. No matter how low a person has sunk or obnoxious they may be, inside of them is the enormous potential to bring amazing things to the world. And that's the common humanity that we're supposed to identify. Number 4 of this is your first love. Okay, what is your first love? So the Torah tells us, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha." Love your neighbor as yourself. The key word there is yourself. A person who doesn't love themselves cannot learn to love others. So how do you build self-love? Well, same technique we just described. Identify your virtues and then choose to identify yourself with them. Right? List your good traits. Are you a caring friend? Are you a hard worker? Are you ambitious? Are you sincere? Are you a truth seeker? Right? Instead of focusing and harping on your weaknesses, which cause us to self-loathe, focus on your positive traits and attributes and characteristics which will create self-love. Number 4 of this is brotherly love. There's an ancient story about why the Temple Mount was chosen to be the place for God's abode on this world. The story goes that there were 2 brothers who inherited a field when their father passed away at the top of the Temple Mount. And before long, one of the brothers gets married, so they decide to divide the field. The brother who gets married ends up with 10 kids, and the brother who does not get married stays alone. In the meantime, they're working their fields on the opposite side of the mount, right? And really not kind of interacting with each other tremendously because each is busy with their own lives. One night, one of the brothers says to himself, the single brother says to himself, I've got this incredible farm and I've got so much largesse coming from it and so many crops coming from it. My brother has 12 mouths to feed. You know what? I'm going to take some of my wheat and I'm going to deposit it in his storehouse. The same night, his brother says to himself, my brother, he's all alone. All he's got is his wealth. I'm going to take some of my wheat and I'm going to deposit it in his storehouse. They each creep up night after night after night and deposit wheat in each other's storehouses. Neither one can figure out why it is that they end up with the same amount of wheat as they started with after giving this gift. Finally, one night, they both walk up at the same time. They immediately recognize what's going on, and they give each other a huge hug of appreciation. The Almighty sees this and says, in a place where brotherly love exists, that's where I want my temple to be. So, applied wisdom ideas. 1, write a list of the people closest to you and list some virtues for each of them. Look for those virtues in other people as well. Number 2, critically, do this about yourself. What are your virtues? And then choose to identify with those virtues forever, and you will increase your self-love exponentially.